Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another deep, probing, in-depth analysis of another of my tournament performances. All four of my games from AltiBash 6, a tournament that took place yesterday, put on in association with Weight of Fire and Altrincham Gaming Club. So, first things first, there were a few unique features in this tournament, and I believe they were truly unique as well. Certain rules that I don't believe have been used on any other tournaments previously. So I'll go through anything notable from the rules pack. So it was 1,900 points. You can have a nice look at my army laid out for game one there. So 1,900 points, which means that certain things I would like to take in threes, for example, rock lobbers and war trombones, if you've been following recent tournaments, couldn't be taken in threes here because you need 2,000 points to take triples of monsters and war machines and such. And the scoring, it borrowed heavily from the previous tournament that I went to. If you saw the scoring there, the way it works is that you get 10 points for a win, 5 for a draw, 0 for a loss, and then added to that, you get up to 5 points for kills based on how many points worth of stuff you killed from your opponent's army, and also up to 5 bonus for the amount of victory points you achieved in the scenario. So even if you're losing and being absolutely destroyed at the end, but you can sit on an objective and get a victory point for it, even if you're going to lose the scenario, it's worth it to give yourself that extra tournament point, which can push you up on the leaderboard. So let's see, anything else on here that I want to get into? Yes. So the scenarios, two of the 4 games will be using the regular scenarios from the Clash of Kings book, and 2 of them will be using the Mantic Battlefield cards for the objectives. No condition cards being used, though, for people who are familiar with that deck, and all the games will be using the strategy cards as well from the Kings of War Battlefield objectives, or the Battlefield cards, should I say. So that means there's going to be 3 cards per side. You get 1 for every full 500 points, so at 1,900 points you get 3 each. And if anyone's unfamiliar, you can have certain things in there, like, for example, a cheap artifact that you can put on a unit, or there'll be things you can play during the game. For example, you can re-roll a dice, add 1 to a nerve test, have the ability to overrun a unit that can't normally be overrun, or +1 to speed for just that turn for a unit. So lots of different things you can do with that. And with that, I think it's time to go through my list. So it's a slight variation on the list I took previously, because obviously with it being the lower points level, I can't take triples of certain things. So I didn't want to take anything I was too unfamiliar with, though, because I haven't played that much Kings of War in the last couple of months. It's been mainly Dead Zone, as you may have seen. So you can see on the table here my full army, and I will go through the list, which is on paper right in front of me here. I have a Rabble Horde, which you can see over there. I have a horde of spitters, which you can see there, with the tree on the base. I have 3 troll hordes, as usual. 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. And the usual items I've got on them, the Dwarven Ale and the Chalice of Wrath, which are very good for countering the effects of Waver, because they have a bigger gap than normal between Waver and the route value compared to most units. And also the Brew of Courage, because that just boosts up their nerve in general, and it's not that expensive. Then I've got Fleabag Rider Sniffs, which I'm learning to love and appreciate. I may end up taking 2 units of them at some point in the future to see how that goes, but just 1 here. 2 War Trombones, because obviously couldn't take 3 here. 2 Big Rock Throwers, of course. That's been what I've been running with recently, except less than usual. And the 3rd Rock Lobber is obviously the Great Lobber of Grogger, which is more expensive, but it's nice to get an extra one in there. Then the 2 Flaggets that are mounted, and anyone that follows my lists at all will know that I'd like the same kind of setup on these 2. 1 with the Diadem of Dragonkind and 1 with the Holy Hand Grenades, and they like to run around causing havoc and inspiring my own troops. I think it's a very cheap way to get maneuverable ranged attacks in there. It's good to team up with the War Trombones for flyer defense, and also they can just run around enemy lines if they want to as well, because they're so fast. So they're a nice cheap nuisance, and it's one of the cheaper ways that you can use those items. Then we've got 2 Troll Bruisers in this list, because obviously the units that I couldn't take 3 of, I was having to drop more of those than the amount of points that I was losing from the list, with it only dropping down by 100. So a bit more rejigging, and an extra Troll Bruiser came in. One of them has the Blade of Slashing because I had 5 points left over, so it's a handy one for them because it usually means that all the attacks will hit. Usually you would think you're only going to get 1 or 2 misses with them. Then there's a Wizard just on foot with the Fenulian Amulet for Lightning Bolt 5, which again is a very cheap way to get a lot of Lightning Bolt. There are certain armies that can have an even more effective way to use that. If they have, for instance, a Wizard that has Elite, then using that item would be even better. But Goblin Wizard's very cheap. So I've got lots of very cheap little shooting attacks, which are really annoying, and the Rock Lobbers. And then I've got a medium amount of meat with the Trolls and the 2 Bruisers, and then just the general going to bog you down unit with the Rabble and the regular shooty units, the Spitters and the Sniffs. So with that, the first game was using the objective cards and the strategy cards. So the way this works, if you're not familiar with the cards, is each player will take 2 cards with objectives on them, and they'll choose which one is going to be their primary objective and which one is going to be their secondary objective. The secondary objectives don't get revealed until turn 4, however, so you don't know what that's going to be. And I've got pictures of the primary objectives coming up in a second, but you can see here that I'm against a very sinister looking army, which is in fact Night Stalkers. And looking at my list, that's probably the one army I wanted to face least, because everything they have is pretty much stealthy, apart from a couple of exceptions, but mostly 90% of the army has stealthy, which means that Rock Lobbers are going to find it harder to hit. They're going to find it very difficult, and most of my other shooting is hindered as well as a result of that. There are a couple of exceptions there, though, like the Holy Hand Grenade always hits on a 4 regardless, so that's a good one to have against stealthy. Then, so this is my primary objective. 3 victory points if I have more unit strength within 12 inches of the exact center of the board than my opponent. And 2 victory points if I hold or contest the base objective on my half of the board. Now, I like the sound of that one because I wasn't planning on advancing too much, because I want to try and shoot up the enemy before they get near me. So I liked the idea of holding that. And the center of the table, I thought, I've got a decent amount of unit strength in this army. If you look and see, I've got, let's see, 5 hordes there and a regiment. And the Troll Bruisers can add into the unit strength as well. So I thought that was a decent option to take there. And then you don't use the secondary objective on the card, you use the secondary objective from the other card. So you'll see what that is on turn 4. My opponent's primary objective. If any of your units hold an objective at the start of your turn from turn 3 onwards, you may give them a loot token. You can generate a maximum of 3 loot tokens over the course of the game this way. 1 of them for each one you hold at the end of the game. 2 if you hold or contest 2 of the field objectives. Now the field objectives are the green dots you can see. There's one in the woods there. Hope you can see that on the screen. 1 right in the center and 1 there. And the base objectives are the ones that are placed on your opponent's side of the table near the back, so pretty much in their deployment zone. So I think the one on my side is around the Spitters, and the one on his side, I can't see it right now, but we'll probably be able to see it in a second. So the base objective on my half of the board is the one I'm trying to hold, which is about here somewhere, underneath the Spitters kind of area. So my opponent is going to be generating loot tokens, and he wants to be around the objectives, basically. All of them, and especially if he holds or contests the field objectives at the end, which are the ones along the middle line. So here's the full layout of the forces. You can see on this side I've got Trolls, a Bruiser, and the Sniffs. He doesn't have much on this side at all, but I've got these in such a position so that they can easily work their way into the center. And then on the other side I've got the bulk of my forces. This is the objective that I want to hold here, and you can see that since I have to get unit strength into the center, then having those units there leaves them very close to it, so not much on this flank. And I've got more Trolls over here as well. So aiming to get big blocks of meat into the middle, and they can also help hold up this here. Now, on the opponent's side here, Night Stalkers. So I can actually remember some of the names of the units. These were the big giant blades are Butchers, which are very, very nasty. There are some bloodworms in there, which might be those here. There are a couple of flying creatures. You can tell the ones that have the wings are the flyers. The one that doesn't have wings there, I think that's one of the few things that doesn't have stealth. And then he's got some phantoms, I think they're called, for Night Stalkers. They're a bit like wraiths. He's got 2 units of those. And he's got some other big gribbly madness here. I think these are all using Tyrannid models. And it actually looks quite tasty. There aren't any Night Stalker official models that I know of yet. And there's the other big flying beastie over there. So that's the only thing he's got on that flank. And most of his forces are over on this side here. So we're both kind of surrendering that side, not interested too much because there's no objectives really to fight for over there. So turn 1, I get the first turn because I win the roll, and of course I'm going to choose to go first because I've got rock lobbers and I want to get as many shots in as possible. So I can move things up, like the sniffs, for example. They can move up in turn 1 an inch or 2 and fire without any ill effects due to being nimble and such. And I've also got things like the lightning bolt wielding wizard who can just go forward an inch or 2 as well and then zap off his lightning bolt. So I've got quite a lot of shooting that can affect the game in turn 1, regardless of if the enemy's moved forward or not. On this side, a bit of an advance with certain troops, because I don't just want to sit all the way at the back. I don't want to give him just this big area of ground here, because I know that a lot of his objectives are based on the objectives across the middle of the table. So I don't just want to give him free rein to sit on those. So a bit of an advance, but not too much. Most of the shooting stuff are only edging forward a little bit. I've tried to give the rock lobbers a line of sight over height 1 troops of mine, because he's got quite a few height 2 or height 4 units at the back. So I'll be able to see over my own guys. And you can see that those have taken some damage already. And that was the only damage I did, I think, in turn 1. Not very successful with the shooting. That may have been with the sniffs. I'm not sure if any rocks hit in turn 1. Probably not, because I'm sure I would have taken a picture. It might have been these guys that did it, actually. Yeah, because I think that unit's up there. So the spitters would have moved forward a tiny bit. So they're hitting on 6s, but I think they had a shot there, or it could have been the wizard. So opponent turn 1. Now he moves this big flying beastie onto the flank, staring down my lines. Now this one has extra speed as well. It's got the brew of haste, so it can fly 22 inches, which is quite terrifying. But I'm not overly concerned by flyers. I do have a lot of flyer defense, as I was talking about before. A lot of breath attack weapons that can just spin round and zap things. And I've also got the sniffs that are very good at turning and shooting at things as well without suffering any penalty. So I'm not too scared about that yet. And even if it does land and kills a unit, it's going to be putting himself in a lot of peril because I've got so many anti-flyer things across the back line. He's moved everything else up, some of them behind obstacles. These phantoms here have gone onto the hill. The wounded unit and something else there have gone into cover, which will protect it against some of my shooting, but not the rock lobbers. Of course, they don't need that much extra protection, really, since they're stealthy as well. Okay, then, I think there was one occasion during this game, I don't know if it has happened already, where I was requiring an 8 to hit. So we had to actually check the rules to see what happens there, because they were in cover and they had stealth, and probably my unit moved as well. But then we looked and found out, well, actually, if it's worse than 6 to hit, then you always just halve your number of attacks and hit on 6s. So it doesn't get worse than that, regardless of how many modifiers stack up, which is nice. And you can see big beasties in the woods. This one can basically charge anything it wants if it survives, I think. Anything along the front lines, anyway. They wanted to stay mostly in the woods, though, to gain the extra bonus against some of my shooting attacks. So, my turn 2. The sniffs have turned round this way. They've made sure they're not going to be charged in the flank by him. They're also moved further this way enough so that nothing from over here, for example, the phantoms, can charge them in the rear, because that would be bad. Although on this scenario, you can never be, with these strategy cards in play, you can never be 100% sure, because your opponent might have the +1 speed card, which means that you have to be very careful. You have to think, well, if you've got one in your hand, I think chances of them having it is slim for a start, so you can use that knowledge to your advantage. And You can even position yourself further away than you normally would. But in this case, I think I'm probably not able to get far enough away to guarantee not being charged. But we'll see if he has the card or not. And they've obviously shot over there. I've put them in such a position so that they can see that thing and shoot at it without it getting any cover, I think. If you look there. Yeah, but I think we worked out that it wasn't getting cover. And it looks like it's taken 6 damage already there. So what it can do here is, if it wants to charge at these guys and kill them, that's okay. It's already taken damage, and then it'll get a Troll Bruiser to the face probably. If it wants to charge the Troll Bruiser, then I've got lots of shooty attacks back behind here that can go after it. Got a few people in the chat, by the way, already. We have the likes of Mickey Jenver, Brendan Duffy, Ross Diggle, and someone else was in there. Dave Doge was in there earlier. I don't know if he's still around. So there we go. You can see that that's taken 6 damage points from that shooting. And the wizard, I've moved him further ahead of everyone else here, because really, I've put him more than 6 inches away from things, so he's not going to get overrun into any of my units. And if he wants to charge him and leave someone out in the open, one of his units, then that's fine by me. So I'm quite happy to lay down the wizard's life there. And I've kind of moved up with a few things here. The trombone's waiting there to strike. The other one's gone down here. And as I mentioned before, I've got lots of annoying shooty attacks in range if that thing decides to fly into this flank here, because I've got the Diadem of Dragonkind there, 2 war trombones. And these guys can also turn and shoot at it if need be. And the rock lobbers are kind of facing a bit that way as well. So at least this one will be able to shoot down there. You can see some damage has been plinked onto these units here, because those guys have taken 2. So that's most likely from the wizard or from these guys here. And the rock lobbers get some success, 7 damage to this bad boy. So I'm assuming that's 2 of them that probably hit to inflict that much. It could have just been 1 though. And opponent turn 2. So I made a bit of a mistake here, because this troll unit here, I made sure that they were going to be front charged if this flying beastie that was over there came to attack them. But I misjudged the distance between the trolls and this piece of terrain here. I didn't think this unit of phantoms would be able to fit there. Let's see if we can get a look at the trolls in that position. Did I take a picture of them when they were in that spot? Doesn't look like it. But you can see them there. I horribly misjudged that distance and thought that they wouldn't have space to land in there. You can see them on the hill, and it's this piece of terrain here. So they came in down in this direction here. So that's my poor judgment there. You should always measure things, even if you think you're sure, you should still check. As long as you're not running out of time, then just have a little look. You should know off the top of your head how big most units are, and just check how big the gaps are. So you'll know what exactly can fit there and what can't. Because I left a gap that was just big enough for them to land, so they actually got flank charged, unfortunately. Which doesn't look good for the trolls. They do have inspired from Harambe the Troll Bruiser there, though. And these phantoms on the hill charge down into this troll horde here. As far as how the troll hordes are armed, the one with the dead elf on the base is always the one with Dwarven Ale. I just think that's fitting. I think dwarves would maybe drink the blood of an elf given half a chance. So that's the Dwarven Ale. And this unit here, this is always the one with the Chalice of Wrath, because he's so angry that he's chopped his own hand off, the guy in the front rank. So it just makes it easier to remember if there's some kind of theme on the base that reminds you what the artifact is. I find that very useful. And this bad boy managed to land in amongst my lines. Now, I'm not overly concerned about this because, well, what's he going to do? He hasn't got any more pivoting available to him. So the worst thing he's going to do, really, is go and eat one of my rock lobbers, which are only 80 points. And he's put himself in harm's way because I have so much that can attack him back here. I've got the Holy Hand Grenade there. There's probably too close to the rock lobbers to be shot at, but I've got multiple trombones and other characters down just off camera here that can come in and help, so I'm not too concerned about that right now. And the wizard does get charged, and I don't think he's going to live, but at least he's leaving one of the enemy units out in the open in the middle there. But he has got a couple of units as backup supporting. The thing with backup, you have to be sure that it's not going to be toasted by gunfire, because if it does get annihilated, if there's enough to do damage to it and possibly waver it, then you can end up not having the support that you were counting on. So having multiple units to support a unit that's, because I've kind of thrown out the bait, and then you could argue that this unit is also kind of a much bigger piece of bait as well now, because if I charge that and kill it, he's got multiple units here that can pile in to the fray. So if I can, with shooting, limit what that counterattack will look like, then that would turn it in my favour there. So a bit of a wider shot here. You can see those guys are hiding behind the hedge there. And over here, you can see that unit is going to sit at the back, and he's not going to move them into combat because I believe they're his cheapest and least powerful unit that can generate objectives and hold on to them. So he's just sitting on that objective, and he's going to spawn loot tokens throughout the game and just stay there and hope to survive, which isn't a bad strategy. Using your cheapest unit for that, that's the kind of thing I would do. If you ever have a really cheap regiment of something, you just sit them at the back holding an objective, especially when they need to be there for the whole game to constantly churn out objectives. That's quite wise, and it's going to rack up victory points if he can hold on to them when he spawns them. Okay, and this is his caster, by the way, in there. Over here, you can see the trolls took 3 damage from those phantoms, but that's not enough. And here, ooh, look at this. The flank charge and the front charge of the big Gribbly did 10 damage to the trolls, but he was only able to waver them, which is really bad news for him because they do have Dwarven Ale. So 2/3 chance that they're going to be able to shrug off the effects of that waver and countercharge somebody. So that could be bad for him. I think these things called Void Lurkers, perhaps, these big flying beasts, that name rings a bell. I should learn all the names of everything, really, shouldn't I? And what do you know, the wizard gets killed. Who would have seen that coming? And actually, this camera is such HD that you can see a piece of string on the hill there. Look at that, that's just pure HD excitement. It's like one of those documentaries where they look at sea life in ridiculous detail, isn't it? So, turn 3. And I was forced to use this Lady Luck card because I failed my Dwarven Ale roll. But I played one of my 3 strategy cards, which allowed me to re-roll a dice, and I successfully passed it at the 2nd attempt. So that is fortunate. Unfortunate that I had to use the card on a dice roll that was likely to go in my favour anyway, but I thought, I've got to use this. This is a perfect opportunity to kill something with them. And you can see they regened 8 of their 10 wounds, so they've only got 2 left on them. And that's the thing with trolls. If you give them something to limit the effects of waver, and they do become wavered, then it's a good chance they're going to regenerate quite a few of their wounds and then shrug off the effects of being wavered. So it's because they have that big waver gap, so it's quite likely to happen. So you can make them very, very tough to crack, and you really have to take them out in one go. And if you can't, it becomes very tricky. And as a result of that, they're able to kill that giant flying, what I believe is the Void Lurker there, who already had a bit of damage on him. They were able to finish him off on the countercharge. You can see that Harambe, the Troll Bruiser, has positioned himself up there. And these trolls countercharged into that unit of phantoms there and killed them. It doesn't look like they regenerated any of their wounds, actually. Over here, well, look at this. I told you I had a lot of things that were going to bother that flyer, and the Holy Hand Grenade hit the War Trombone and the Diadem of Dragonkind, all gently toasted him, so he's dead as well. So both of his big flying Gribblies are gone. 3 out of 4 flying units are dead now. In the middle, the trolls charged into these butchers and put 4 damage on them. I double charged with these Rabble and a Troll Bruiser into this unit here and put 5 damage on them. And there's a big overview. You can see the cards I've got out here. These are actually stat cards for all my units, which I find handier than having just the roster sheet like down there on the chair, because I can put them closer to the unit, so I can, at a glance, tell you what the stat for any unit is if I don't remember. And those were actually sent to me by the company 9d10. And I think they're currently selling them now. So I'm going to have to do a full video on those cards at some point, because they are very handy. You can order them customized with different artifacts on and that kind of thing. So easy reference for your army. So you can see that these guys turned around to join in with the shooting as well, because they weren't going to be able to shoot much else that I wanted to, really. So I thought I might as well just spin around and take the -1 to hit on this big thing here and try and put some extra damage on it. And all of that combined was enough to kill it. So you can see it's looking quite good for the goblins at this stage. This side is quite solid, no real damage taken to my army. And on this side, that flyer being killed has really punched a big hole in the enemy forces. It looks like I'm going to be able to sweep around with quite a few troops here into the center, and that's my main objective, of course, so I'm in a good position to go for that. And I'm going to start pushing things forward now, probably, and try and seize the advantage that I've got. Night Stalker's turn 3, and he plays Rousing Speech, so heal D3 damage on a unit. And he does it on this unit here that was double charged by the Bruiser and the Rabble Horde, and gets 3 wounds back, which is very handy. A little bit of a blurry picture there. So you can see that he countercharges. This unit is actually facing backwards because their spears were poking this guy in the face, so they wouldn't sit together nicely. And let's just go back a couple of images, because I was making sure that they weren't hindered by this piece of terrain here, or that they weren't in the terrain, because let's see where they came from. Let's find an image of them out in the open. There they are. So when I charged into the unit that was facing in this direction, is it that unit? I believe it is. And I wanted to make sure that they weren't hindered by this, so I wanted to get them perfectly lined up with the unit to make sure that they weren't touching this piece of terrain here. So I had to turn them backwards to achieve that, which is why you'll see in a couple of images' time that there they are backwards. So, where were we? Here we go. Opponent, Night Stalker, turn 3. So he flies his remaining phantoms out of charge arc of everybody, because he doesn't fancy his chances at finishing off those trolls that regenerated most of their wounds. And he's just going to position himself there and maybe charge someone else in the flank in a minute if he gets a chance. Butchers back into the trolls. These guys decide to go back into the Rabble Horde rather than the Bruiser. And this big beastie who was in the woods charges into the flank of the trolls, and he's positioned him sideways just because the big spike was poking one of the trolls and they wouldn't physically fit. So there's a lot of very pointy units here. And Distraction, I play this card because my opponent was casting a spell. I think it was Bane Chant that he was casting on this Gribbly here to give it extra crushing strength. And I played this card, which would mean that the spell only works on a 5+ instead of a 4. However, you can see he passed it anyway. But it was the only time I was really going to get to use the card, so it was worth a go. So that's Bane Chanted him up. And as a result of that, those trolls get munched to death. So they're dead. And that's how they are positioned after the combat, those 2 units. Over here he puts a fair bit of damage onto this horde, but not enough to worry them yet. And my turn 4. So my secondary objective is now revealed. 2 victory points if I have more unit strength on the opposing half of the board than my opponent. So I want to get unit strength into his half and hope he doesn't have units there. Now that sounds okay to me. He's got 1 unit, I believe it's a regiment, that is permanently living on his own half of the table, which could mess up those plans. But on my right flank, I do have a lot of unopposed units that can just walk into the opposition half unopposed, which is nice. Dave Doge says, I just hope you didn't use weighted dice. Well, if my... Actually, I'll get to that at the end of the game. I don't want to spoil anything. Here we go. So, you can see these units here can easily get into the opposition half unopposed, and they can pretty much munch through that unit as well. And people talking about the adverts they got on this video when they loaded it up. Apparently, one person got an advert for EVE Online, and somebody got one for Japanese Airlines. Well, there you go. Targeted advertising. Over here, I moved the war trombone in to toast this guy, these phantoms, but unfortunately, I don't think it actually does any damage there. Don't worry, Mickey, I didn't use weighted dice, but there is a mildly funny story involving weighted dice to come later. And here I've got a double charge in. Now, because they went back into the Rabble Horde and not him, he can actually get a flank charge on them now. So because of that, I think I waver them. But if that is the case, then I think they may have Fury, so I think they're still able to countercharge, if I'm remembering this right. I've got the Holy Hand Grenade here, which launches a grenade into these butchers, puts some more damage on them, so they're heavily damaged now. And units moving up. I believe this is my opponent's turn 4 now, but he hasn't turned his own dice over yet. So his secondary objective, 2 victory points if you hold or contest the base objective on your side of the board. So he'll get 2 victory points if he can hold his own base objective, which he is currently doing with the unit that's just sitting there generating loot tokens. So that's very good news for him there. And he double charges the Rabble Horde with this unit and the Gribbly. And this unit here goes into the flank of the Bruiser after I failed to kill this unit here. The Phantoms decide to charge. I couldn't block up everything. I blocked the rear charge into the Trolls with the War Trombone, but they did get into the flank of the Spitters there, which might not end well, but it is a Horde, so I would expect them to survive 1 round probably against a unit that doesn't have a huge amount of attacks. These Butchers go after the Trombone, so that's going to be dead. And these guys kill the Troll Bruiser, which isn't fun. And the Rabble Horde is dead as well. So look at all that damage. And then he moves forward, I think, after that combat. And this unit that does the damage there to the Spitters has to bounce out and be an inch away from everything, so that's where it ends up. Then these guys are positioning themselves. I think maybe they had to stop there, or no, they charged the Trombone, didn't they? And killed that, which I think was just in front of this guy anyway. So I don't know if they overran or whether he's just turning them around there. So you can see it's actually looking healthier for the Night Stalkers now. They just cleared out a few units over on this side. And my support is coming in though. So as far as the objectives, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to succeed with at least this central one, which is where I'm going to get most of my points. But I'm concerned about this unit here. All his objectives that he's got over there, he's got that, which is going to get him 2 if he stays near it, and he's churning out loot tokens onto that unit. So could be bad news there. Turn 5. So Rock Lobbers, well, what do they do? And the Holy Hand Grenade. Well, they hit multiple times, put a ton of damage onto his one unit that's holding all his objectives and all his victory points, but then double 1. Wow. I should also point out that there's a prize in this tournament. The best prize, which was a copy of Star Saga, is going to be given to the player with the most double 1s. And I think this is my second of the game. I had one earlier, but didn't take a picture of it because it kind of wasn't a real double 1, because it was quite a way off killing the unit anyway. But still a double 1. It doesn't matter how far away you are. Any roll of a double 1 counts for the purposes of counting up for that potential prize win. So double 1 on them. Oh dear, that could be bad, and it could cost me the game. You never know. So over here, the Spitters, I believe they countercharge that unit there. These Trolls are making their way over in that direction towards the bulk of the fighting. And Harambe the Bruiser and these Trolls charge into the unit that was behind there and kill them. And the Fleabag Sniffs are just working their way into the opposition half with that objective in mind, the secondary objective, to have more unit strength in the opposition half. So as it stands, it's looking very healthy, because that unit in there, which I believe is a regiment, and I can send Harambe the Bruiser and them into this half, maybe the Trolls as well, so I can very likely get that objective. And then having more unit strength in the center, that's also looking good as well, because he's running out of strength and I've still got hordes around here. So it's looking good for my objectives, but it's also looking good for his because I failed to kill that unit. Night Stalker's turn 5. So this Gribbly goes into the rear of the Spitters and probably going to finish them off this time. And the butchers, who've taken a lot of damage, get into the... This is the Great Lobber, so that's going to be worth more points. The Phantoms get a flank charge into these trolls. I wasn't too concerned about that for some reason. And over here, this unit... Now, you may think this is crazy, abandoning his base objective, which is worth 2 victory points to him, but he's concerned that if this unit takes 1 more point of damage, they're just going to die. So he's trying to get them kind of out of sight of some of my shooting, and the Fleabag Sniffs that are around there won't be able to get in sight to shoot them now. So that's less shooting attacks I've got directed at them. So potentially wise, and they've generated 2 loot tokens so far. I've got other shooting attacks, but playing the odds, it might be a good move doing that. He kills the Rock Lobber, of course. He kills the Spitters, of course. He wavers these trolls, but these are the ones that can countercharge even when wavered, so that's not going to help him. Because of the Chalice of Wrath, you can see the Severed Hand confirms that. Turn 6. So, the trolls munch down and destroy those Phantoms. I think it was a double charge. And then, Holy Hand Grenade, Diadem of Dragonkind. The Fleabag Sniffs, which I think were shooting through cover to get to the unit. Put more damage on them. Look at that. A second double 1 in a row on the same critical unit. Wow, wow. So they're currently holding on to victory points there. And that's twice that I've double 1'd them. Again, could end up costing me the game. Because at the moment, he will have 2. He's got 2. He's holding 2 of those loot tokens there. And I'm going to get all my objectives, which is going to be... Or I may not get my own base objective, because I think the unit that was holding that died. So, but I will claim my central objective and my secondary objective. So there'll be 3 for basically the dominate, and 2 for having more unit strength in the opponent's half. So I'd be up to 5. So even if he backs up on turn 6 into that, he'll still only have 4. So we shall see. Turn 6 for the Night Stalkers. So he actually moves into the woods to make himself harder to hit again, in case there's a turn 7. So if it ends on turn 6, you could say that's potentially a bad move, because he could have backed up onto his base objective and got 2 more victory points to add to his tournament score. But he knew that if he stayed out in the open and there was a turn 7, they were definitely going to take damage. In the woods, at least, there's less likelihood of them taking damage from all this craziness here. Not so much the Holy Hand Grenade, but the Sniffs definitely. And you can see that he's charged into another Rock Lobber there, trying to get some more points, and another charge into those trolls there with the big beastie. Kills the Rock Lobber, kills the trolls. And you can see there that I've got more unit strength around this point. I've got a Horde and a Troll Bruiser. He's just got a monster, so I've got victory points for that if it ends now, which it does. And he's got those 2 victory points there, and I've also got these guys in his half as well, which is more than these guys here, because they're just a regiment, and that guy there as well adding on. So I've got 5 victory points to his 2. So it's a win. There's the final look at the battlefield. And as far as kill points go, I killed 1,240 points. He killed 1,125 points, if the calculations are correct. So giving us both a kill point bonus of 3. So that means that I've got 18 points in the first round, and he has got 5. So a nice big juicy win there to start things off, but not maximum points. It's always a bad idea to get maximum points in the first game, because then you'll meet some absolute beast in the second round. But not really. You should just try and get points wherever you can. I don't agree with ever intentionally crippling yourself and taking points away that you should have got, because if you keep winning, you'll eventually run into the beasts anyway. So it depends. If you've kept an eye on all the other tables and you've spotted an army that you match up really well against, and you happen to overhear how many points that person got, and you think, oh, I want to play that guy's army there, and you hear that maybe they got 19 points and you're on course for a 20, and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to back off this objective to make it more likely that I play that person, then I don't know whether I've actually witnessed that ever happening, but you could see people doing that. It's difficult, though, if you're still playing, to keep an eye on all the other tables. The only time you really get to see what's going on in the games is when yours is already finished. So I don't know if anyone can really be that tactical with it. So, good first round. And I've vanquished the one army I was most worried about facing as well. The Rock Lobbers did a wonderful job at rolling sixes during that game, which is why I got quite a few hits with them. So, good start for the Lobbers against the one army I was most terrified of. So, round 2, I am against Goblins. It's a Goblin off, but this Goblin army has a very different makeup to mine. And I'll go through that list in a minute, but the scenario here is push. So you have 2 loot counters each to place on your units, and 1 in the center, and then you'll get 1 for holding on to them at the end, and I believe 2 if they're in the opponent's half. So you can see the point right in the middle there. I believe it's represented by a coin in this game. And my opponent's army, you can see he's got a couple of giants. He's got lots of hordes of sharp sticks. Sharp sticks are kind of back in fashion now, it seems. The changes to the way Thunderous Charge works, meaning that it's only reduced by 1 when they make a hindered charge, means that Phalanx got better, you could argue. So you might see more sharp sticks now, and you'll possibly because you'll see more Thunderous Charge because it was improved, so now there'll be more need for it, because before people didn't take that much Thunderous Charge, so taking sharp sticks seemed like a waste because they weren't going to get that much use. And an army that did have a lot of Thunderous Charge, they could just choose to avoid that 1 unit that you took. John Gunn says, Rusty Shackleford would die for your Rock Lobber dice rolls for his Dwarf Artillery. Yes. My artillery dice has been known to roll quite a lot of 5s and 6s when it's down to crunch time. So here is my setup for this game. I've got my Flaggit over there with the Diadem of Dragonkind, kind of on his own. But as you can see from this setup, my opponent doesn't really have much in that corner. So he was just set up there early on in the deployment, and he's put most of his stuff in the center. So I've matched that because obviously there's a lot of meat on both sides, and we want to fight over that in the middle. And he's got faster things like giants flanking. So we've got a troll horde here. They've got one of the loot tokens with a trombone behind them and a bruiser next to them. Then we've got the rubble horde with trolls behind with the other token. So it slows them down to 5, but it's not that big of a deal because they're just going to be going at the same pace as the rest of my lines. And then if I want to charge them further than 10, I can always just drop the tokens. Then I've got the other troll bruiser there, a trombone that sniffs. And down here, I've got the spitters in difficult terrain, for if anyone charges in there. Next to them, the wizard and the holy hand grenade Flaggit, and the 3 rock lobbers in the corner, all looking into the central area, kind of at his lines, and angled at his giants mainly, but they do have a view of the lines in the middle as well a little bit. You'll see when we get the wider shots. So 2 giants, troll horde. He's got a Flaggit behind there, I think. He's got, or he might have just 2 wizards actually, and I think they have the Veil of Something spell that gives a unit stealthy. I think that's what they are, so I think that's also a wizard. Then he's got 3 sharp stick hordes. He's got a troll horde here that has the potion of the caterpillar, so they won't be bothered by difficult terrain. 2 war trombones. Another troll horde there. Troll bruiser in the middle. One of the sharp stick hordes has a hammer of measured force. I think it's this one with the big rock in the center. There's his other wizard. And turn 1. So I get the first turn roll again. And I choose to go first, obviously, with all my shooting. And I do have to go forwards a bit, though, in this game, because I want that loot counter, and I want the fighting to be done not all in my half, because that's going to leave all the tokens in my half at the end if that happens, which I don't want. So just moving up, not too fast, though, because I've still got the shooting superiority. These guys moved up slightly onto the hill so they can shoot off. The wizard's moved up so he can shoot. So not a massive advance, but most things are moving a little bit. Now he's got lots of height 2 or above units that I'm going to be able to target over my own troops with the rock lobbers, so that's nice. And the rock lobbers do get some hits in on the first turn and put 8 damage on this giant, so that's a good start. And the sniffs, what do they do? 3 damage to one of the hordes. That was the only thing that was in range, really. So just chipping away at them. I don't think he has any healing. And this guy, this Flaggett, is just working his way around the edge of the table here, staying out of sight of things. And he's going to be worming his way back in and being a general nuisance. Enemy turn 1. The advance is on. He's outgunned, so he's moving forwards. And yeah, I don't think he's got any shooting that's really in range yet. I think his wizards will have lightning bolt capabilities, which is why I hid my Flaggett at that point, because I didn't want him to get lightning bolted off. 1 damage can often be enough to at least waver something with such low nerve. Over here, I believe he makes one of his giants or the trolls stealthy. I can't remember exactly which one it is. It may just be this one, this big juicy one here, that's already damaged. My turn 2. So, again, not much of an advance, though, this time. Because I'm thinking, okay, my shooting's going quite well. I don't need to rush in here. So I'll just hold back a little bit. I'm in range to strike, but I want to do more shooting first. So, rock lobbers, the spitters actually moved backwards because they didn't want to be charged by a giant. So they're not worried about shooting right now. They just don't want to be charged. And then I'm going to get shooting in here and try and kill a giant at least. So I've got the wizard over there for his lightning bolt as well. So the wizard and the holy hand grenade. There's 5 damage on this giant, and I think the other one is actually dead now. The rock lobbers may have done that. They may have contributed because the rock lobbers did well in this game. So I think the other giant might actually be dead now. And this one is on 5 wounds as well. He may have put stealth onto the trolls, you know. I'm not exactly sure. Or he may have just failed his roll and not got any of them stealthy. I should have taken a picture of his dice roll for his spell, really. Never mind. I think he might have failed it. 5 damage on this horde here. That have been plinked by my other shooter units. Dave Doge says, why no AOS battle reports? Well, it's funny you should say that, actually, because there's going to be one coming in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. And simply, no battle reports because I haven't played it for about a year. Turn 2 for the enemy goblins. And they're moving forward. This guy's going to be in a bit of an annoyance to them unless he goes in range of a trombone, which would toast him gently over an open fire. So he's advancing all the way up with lots of these units. So I'm going to have charge options next turn because I've got a bit of a speed advantage because I've got more trolls. More trolls on the front lines, I think. And over here, this giant moves in, and these trolls move out of the woods as well. And that's their final positioning. And their final positioning, staring down into my lines. My turn 3, so I'm not going to be able to avoid combat for a whole another turn. So I'm going to be advancing certain units up. So I go for a triple charge on one of his hordes here. Troll Bruiser, 2 troll hordes into this horde of sharp sticks here. So bypassing that unit entirely. And one reason I'm doing this is because one of my strategy cards that I got for this game was an overrun card. So I can overrun a unit that isn't an individual. So my plan here is to kill this horde and then overrun this horde of trolls into the Bruiser and try and kill him as well, which would be quite a big bonus. This guy with his Diadem of Dragonkind has moved in as well. And, oh, there's a picture of all my shooting battery here. So what do they do? And the Holy Hand Grenade. Well, they kill that horde of trolls there that was previously undamaged. So the rock lobbers hit, the grenade hits, and they're just dead. So my shooting is doing amazingly in this game so far. That wounded giant is still around, though. And I don't know if you can see in any of the pictures, but my sniffs have actually run away. You'll be able to see later on, but they've moved away from the giant, I think. You'll see in a minute. So look at this. The Diadem of Dragonkind only puts a few damage on them, but double 6 to waver them. which could be critical because if I fail to kill that horde there and bounce back, that now means they can't charge the trolls in the flank. So I do manage to get rid of that horde with the triple charge and then use my unstoppable strategy card to follow up into the bruiser, which is important on 2 counts. 1, it gets them into the bruiser and does damage on him, and 2, I'm not sure whether it actually had this effect or not, but I believe when they centered up and moved that way, about the width of this base, then that means they can't then be flank charged by this troll unit here, which they could have potentially been unless they turn to face that way. So it's kind of a win-win situation there. And you can see how that's looking. And now I've got another strategy card which I'm holding on to, which makes a unit yellow-bellied when they attempt to charge. So I'm planning to use that as soon as this unit tries to charge anything, just to give me a 1 in 6 chance of them not being able to charge. So, opposition turn 3, you can see I tried to play that card, but obviously it didn't pay off. So they go in, double charge in the front of this troll horde. They might kill them in one go, but this charge is going to not be hindered because of the caterpillar potion. So, could well end up killing this horde. These trolls go into these trolls here, so a troll off, and the bruiser is just left alone there. Over here, now I ran my sniffs away, out of range of the giant. The only way they could get out of his charge range was to turn completely the other way and go as fast as they could away from him. However, he revealed that he had the energy burst card, so he was able to up his speed by 1 and actually charge them in the rear. So wow, when there's potential energy burst cards around, you don't want to expose your rear to someone when you're only 1 or 2 inches out of their charge range, because that can put a little bit of a downer on things. So I expect them to die horribly. And the Flaggit gets wavered by a lightning bolt, I think. And so does this wizard. So lots of my annoying shooting attacks are being affected here. And he wavers these trolls. And this is the unit with the Chalice of Wrath, the Fury. So they're going to be able to countercharge still. And he also wavers this unit. He wavered them via a Panic in the Ranks card, which added 1 to the nerve test. So they're wavered, but they have Dwarven Ale, so they might be able to ignore it as well. So he's wavered the 2 units I want to be wavered, really. That could be bad news for him. The giant, of course, kills the Fleabag Sniffs and then turns around to look in this direction. He is damaged, though, and I've got quite a lot of shooting attacks with his name on. Turn 4 for me. So War Trombone moves into position to toast this unit, and I think it actually wavers them as well. And here, I moved Harambe the Bruiser in front of the giant so it couldn't charge the rear of one of my troll units, I think. And then I also moved these guys and shot at it and put some more damage on it. And I think a rock may have hit it as well, possibly, and it wavered it with the shooting. So the giant's Fury isn't going to help him there because he can only countercharge while wavered. Nobody charged him, so he's kind of stuck now. I charged my Rabble Horde into his Sharpstick Horde, 8 damage. Then I charged my trolls into his trolls, countercharge, and with the aid of Panicking the Ranks, add 1 to a nerve test, I was able to get rid of them. And you can also see that his Troll Bruiser is dead. That's because these trolls went into him on the countercharge and killed him. So I've left that unit alive for now because I didn't think I'd kill them in one go, so I wanted to get that Bruiser out of there. And this Bruiser has turned around and he's looking in this direction. So that unit being wavered could be important because they're not going to be able to charge them anymore. And I wanted them facing this way so I could then charge them next time. So in terms of the scenario, at this moment, let's see where those tokens are. So I've got trolls holding tokens there. He's holding one. And the other one, let's see. I think my other trolls have got one as well. I think, are all 3 hordes of trolls still alive? Let's see. I think they all might have one. I'm not sure. I couldn't remember which of his units have the tokens anymore. But anyway, I've got lots of tokens and they're moving into his half with relative ease. Okay, we've got a picture of his wizard. I don't like the sound of that. Yes, that's because he killed my Flaggit with another lightning bolt. And this one fails to hurt this Flaggit, I think, or fails to do anything on the nerve test. And he countercharges Sharpstick Horde into Rabble Horde. The Troll Horde charges into this Troll Horde. So they may very well kill them, but we shall see. But even if they do, I've got these Trolls to move in and the Bruiser there as well. Oh, but look at that. He only wavers them again. And that Dwarven Ale, you don't want to be wavering them constantly. It's a bad time. Puts more damage onto my Horde. It looks like he's going to win that War of Attrition because Sharp Sticks have more attacks. Turn 5. So, I managed to clear things out. These Trolls charge into the Sharp Stick Horde and kill them. These Trolls countercharged after successfully passing their test and killed that unit along with the Bruiser. And these Trolls are moving into position behind the Rebel Horde there, who countercharged into the Sharp Sticks and did a bit more damage, just softening them up so that next turn, either they'll kill the Rebel and then I'll be able to charge them, or they don't kill the Rebel and I'll still hopefully be able to double charge them because they'll charge in, then slide down to make space for the Trolls. Harambe, the Bruiser, is just chilling out around here, and you'll see that the Giant's dead because he charged him and finished him off. So it's looking very, very bad for my opponent right now. I've got all the tokens marching into his territory, and I'm pretty close to killing everything now. He doesn't have much left. He's got a War Trombone left. He's got this Horde, and I think there's a Wizard around here somewhere. So opposition turn 5. He does kill my Rebel Horde, though. So that's some more points for him. Then what does the Trombone do? Well, it kills a Horde of Trolls. Wow. So my turn 6. The Trolls eat the War Trombone. I think that's what was there. The Trolls and the Bruiser eat the Sharpstick Horde. So the only thing left is that Wizard. And on his turn, he kills... I think he kills this Wizard. He kills the Wiz. So he gets a few more kill points there. But there's the entire table. So I've got tokens in his half. This unit has 1 in his half. The Bruiser has 1 in his half, so that's 4 points there, and I think this unit has 1. And I'm not sure whether they're over the halfway line, but that's 5, which is the maximum you can get for tournament bonus, which is good. And there's only 1 enemy unit left, so I'm going to get maximum kill points as well, because it's just a Wizard left. And that was very, very successful. The artillery had an amazing game there, and it seemed like they were incapable of rolling anything that wasn't a 5 or a 6. So I'm sure, much to the bemusement of my opponent, that artillery dice, it really did its job here. Although I did point out to him that generally they have 1 game per tournament where they don't hit anything during the game, but I'm sure that wasn't much consolation, considering that they just chewed through his army with relative ease. And there were a few other key moments as well. For example, when I got the triple charge on his Horde and killed that and overran did damage on the Bruiser, I didn't take any flank charges, and I'd wavered his other Horde over there, so it just took him longer to do much in the centre. And then constantly wavering the unit with Dwarven Ale and the Chalice of Wrath. That's a bad time. You don't want to be constantly wavering those 2 units, because more often than not, they're going to be chewing your face anyway. Dave Doge, it was a smackdown. Yes, it was. It was a very large win, maximum points, 20 points, putting me on 38 points out of 40 from the first 2 games. So presumably that's going to have me on the top table. So next game. Now, this is another card game. The objectives generated by the cards. And I'm against Ogres. So Ogres are the one army I want to face, because everything they have is height 2 for the most part, especially if they don't take any red goblins. I don't think they did. So everything height 2 or more, so I can constantly be shooting rock lobbers over my own height 1 goblins. So I can position rock lobbers behind things quite easily and shoot over the top and still see everything. He's got chariots as well, which are even bigger. Height 3, so I can see over hills and hit them, and see over my own trolls to hit them also. And the objectives that the 2 cards I got to choose from, I wasn't really that keen on either of them. So you can see where the objectives are. There's a central one there, one there, one there. And then the base objectives, I can't see them. I think that's his there. I put it all the way over on that side, and I think he put one more in the middle, maybe over here somewhere. I wanted to spread things out. I wanted to possibly encourage him to keep one of his units over there out of the way, because he doesn't have that many drops. So if I can keep something that he needs to score points with, keeps it over there, that would be good news for me. And I can spread out more because I've got more drops and more maneuverability with annoying little units. He's just got more blocks. He has got a few chariots, though, which are fairly maneuverable. So my primary objective, in the end, I decided to go for this one. Place a bounty token on each of your opponent's 3 most expensive units. So I'm thinking, this actually sounds pretty ideal, because the 3 most expensive units, even though I get bonus points for killing them in melee, then I can shoot them up, get them really heavily damaged with all my shooting, and then when they get there and I get to charge them, I can just finish them off and rack up those points. So it's a gamble, because it can backfire if you accidentally kill them with shooting first and get less points as a result. And also, it's a possibility that you just might not do enough damage to them to kill them over the course of the game. My opponent's primary objective, 3 victory points if you have more unit strength within 12 inches of the exact center of the board of your opponent, which is the one I had in the first game. So it's basically the dominate scenario. And I think I have a lot more unit strength. Let's see. I've got, well, let's do his first. So there's chariot regiments, that's only 2. That is a horde there. So that's going to be 3, so up to 5, 6. Horde, so 9. 2 regular characters there, so we're up to 11. Then we've got, I think there's a horde there, so up to 14, 15, and regiment, so 17. 17 unit strength for him. I've got regiments, that's 2. I've got a horde, so up to 5, 8. Another horde, 11, another horde, 14. 2 troll bruisers, 16, and another horde there. So 19. So it's actually very equal on unit strength. I've just got a lot of like peripheral units that don't have any unit strength, war machines. So pretty close on that one. And 2 victory points if he holds or contests his own base objective, which I have put all the way over in that corner for him. So if he wants to hold that, he's going to have to keep a unit out of the game, pretty much, which he doesn't want with such a low number of drops. So here's my setup. I've got my sniffs here opposite his chariots because I want to be able to shoot them, and then if they move towards me, I can just move backwards and carry on plinking shots away at them. Then I've got an inspiring flaget there as well in case they get shot, for example. And I do make a blunder here actually with my deployment. I put my war machines in a spot where he can actually shoot them with his shooters because I forgot they were 36 inches and not 24. So wow, that's my mistake there. But I did screen most things with this rabble unit here, so if he shoots most things, they'll have cover. Over here, one of my strategy cards gives a blade of slashing to the other troll bruiser, so they both have one now. And trombone there, all the trolls around the middle. Because as you can see, I've got just this wall of flesh waiting for his units to come in. Hopefully they'll be the walking wounded by the time they get to me, and I'll charge in and finish them off and just rack up those points. Over on this flank, mainly just shooting attacks. So, his lines, he's got a chariot regiment. He's got, one of these characters is Grokkagamok, probably the one at the back hiding. He's got some kind of wizard, I can't remember what the ogre wizard's called. And the other guy is another character, but I can't remember what that one is. He's got Grokkagamok's special braves or something. So they're quite nasty in combat. He's got, I believe these would be your regular ogre warriors there. He's got a hero on a chariot. He's got shooter horde and another chariot regiment. So the 3 most expensive units are these braves, Grokkagamok, and the shooters back there. So I'm going to have to pelt all these guys with fire. So turn 1, I get turn 1 again, which is nice. And I'm going to be able to fire off some shots in the first turn. So let's see. The Fleabag sniffs. they put some damage onto the chariots, just plinking away at them slowly. Hopefully it'll encourage them to move away from that objective for a start. And the rock lobbers, what do? Now, a picture of the floor means they didn't hit anything, of course. Everything else moves up a little bit into the woods so I can see out of them. And the wizard generally edges forward a little bit just so he can shoot his lightning bolt off in the first turn, but I don't think he did anything. Ogre turn 1. The shooters, what do? Well, they immediately kill one of my rock lobbers because I forgot about the range of the ogre shooters. So I should have put them over on the left flank somewhere, really, because I had lots of deployments left when he'd finished. So I could have put them all my vulnerable stuff I could have kept out of range of his shooters. That was just a silly oversight on my part there. So that's one rock lobber dead. He wavers the wizard. I assume that was with a lightning bolt from one of his casters here. Turn 2 from me. It's very short, turn 1, and from the ogre side, not much shooting. So my spitters, they put damage onto the other chariot horde, or chariot regiment, should I say. And the sniffs, well, you can see they've done more damage to this unit. And they are moving forward now. This is because I'm taking the pictures for my turn as he's already started his turn. So they were back there when they took the damage. And the rest of my lines just mainly staying back because I want to just pelt him. Rock lobber, does it hit anything? No, the rock lobbers miss again. So they're kind of letting me down at the moment after that amazing last game. Now they're missing. I'm paying the price. Lady Luck does average out. And I can tell you now, because it's no longer a spoiler, after game 2, I was thinking of making a video where I get my artillery dice, which is kind of a black and orange swirly looking dice that I use for all my artillery shots because it's nice and big and chunky. And I just like using that for any one dice roll because it's so cool looking. I was thinking of doing a video where I drop that in a glass of water or something just so I can show everyone that it doesn't always turn with 6 facing up. But at the start of this game, I thought, well, I don't think I really need to do that anymore because it's just constantly missed every time it's fired so far in this game. So I'm not sure that video is necessary anymore. And you can see his lines are advancing up there. And advancing on the center. So this is, of course, the area where he wants to have more unit strength than me in there to get points. And he's bringing 2 of his expensive units forward, though, but he is hiding old Grockergamok behind there, so unlikely to be able to see him with much because he doesn't want him to get rocks dropped on his head. That would be a really bad time for him. Oh, but he does kill my wizard, I think, with his lightning bolts. And he also kills a war trombone as well, probably with these shooters. Turn 3. So the sniffs finish off the chariot regiment. So that flank is looking pretty empty now. And in the center, right, you can see what I've gone for here. So I had a strategy card that gives me a speed boost of 1 inch. So he positioned this unit of Braves, which are one of the valuable units I want to kill. And if I kill them, it's just instant 3 victory points if I kill them in combat. So he left them in charge range of 1 troll horde, knowing he could survive that, especially because they're hindered, but out of the charge range of the other one, and he wind blasted the troll bruiser backwards, so he was out of range as well. However, I played this energy burst card so I could make a double charge on that unit, which he wasn't expecting, and I'm going to maths this one out because I was vaguely thinking I should have a good chance at killing them. So they've got 18 attacks each, 36 attacks. They'll be hitting on 5s because they're hindered. So let's assume that we get 15 hits. I think those guys are defense 4. So 2s to wound. So I would hope that I'd be getting 12 or so wounds there. You would think. Which would mean, I think they're nerve 19 as well. And I think I had a card that was re-roll dice or add 1 to a nerve roll or something. So I was thinking, you know what? I actually think I can take them out in one go if I just roll average. And I may not get the perfect opportunity to get this many victory points in one go. Killing them in melee, and they're the target unit as well. So 2 points for just killing one of those units, and an extra bonus 1 for killing them in close combat. So I've got to take this opportunity. So I go for it. However, I do not roll very well at all, and I only do 7 damage, which is really bad. So that's now put my trolls in a really bad position because of that horrific dice roll there. So they're going to get flank charged and everything, and it's just a bad time. So it looks like that risk isn't going to pay off, although you never know, because I have got them damaged now. So maybe I'll be able to get something else into them later on. Because really, if I can just kill some of the expensive units, I'm going to get victory points. So win, lose, or draw, they're in the bank then. So that risk didn't pay off, unfortunately. My spitters and the Diadem of Dragonkind put more damage onto his chariots over on my left-hand side. And then Ogre turn 3. So now this is something I totally didn't spot, because this chariot was able, because chariot characters are now nimble. I don't think they were before, so that's something it wasn't in my mind at all. I didn't have any inclination to think that that chariot was going to be able to charge all the way over here at this unit, because let's see where it was. It's behind his lines there. Look at that. He can just see the unit there because that chariot is height 3. So it wasn't even in my mind that he'd be able to get a charge in there, because obviously you wouldn't be able to do it with one pivot. But because they're nimble now, he was actually able to get into them, which is really bad. So it's another thing that I'll have to keep in mind from now on when facing chariots. So as you can see, the furious countercharge from these guys isn't going to be fun. He's got Grocky and the warriors there into the flank of this one. And I think he positions this guy here so that they can't slide further down, perhaps, which is always something you should be thinking about. And then the Braves have gone into this unit here. So I'm not confident. I think this troll unit's going to die horribly, and this one might just cling on to life. But because the Bruiser was wind blasted back, I don't have any inspiring. So it's going to be a close one. So over here, you can just see the state of play. This guy's also blocking certain charges here and making sure that certain other charges would be hindered. So for example, if the trolls want to charge him, they'll be hindered by this. So the shooters, they kill off my sniffs over on that side that had killed the chariots. And then for some reason, these two pictures are blurry. And then Grokkagamok and the warriors kill the troll horde there. Look at all that damage. So wow, wow. And then this unit gets a really good round of attacks and kills the other troll unit as well. So the two troll hordes that went in, if you have a below average round, when you've taken a big risk like that, then you can pay the ultimate price. And those two troll units have just paid the ultimate price. So it's not going well, and I'm suspiciously low on meat now moving forward. So you can see him moving them up now. So he does some damage onto the horde with the chariot, but he's not going to kill it. My turn 4. So now we reveal my secondary objective. 2 victory points if I rout the most expensive remaining enemy unit, which is Grokkagamok. So now he is the ultimate victory point generator. If I can kill him in close combat, he's now worth 5 points. If he's the only thing I kill. If I also kill the Braves first, then that would get me 3, and then he would just be worth 3 from that point. So still worth doing, but if he's the only thing I kill from now on, it's worth it. He's just worth a ton of victory points on his own now. So here we've got some charges. I countercharged the rabble horde into the chariot. The troll bruisers charge into these ogres here. This one was from over here, and this one from the front. So you would expect that maybe all those bruiser attacks in the flank might be enough to do something useful there, but they only managed to waver them. So that's bad. And this troll unit, I think, go into this guy, because that's the only thing they could see. And then the trombone is just there tromboning away. So yeah, look at that. Only a waver. And I think they have fury as well. So that's going to be bad news. You would think that with 2 troll bruisers, 1 in the flank, both with the blade of slashing, I think, for this game, or maybe just this one, it may have been the last game when he had it as well, then you would think maybe we can kill them, but no. 3 damage to the chariot, so not enough to worry him yet. The spitters managed to finish off the chariot regiment, though, so that's nice. Ogre turn 4. So his secondary objective is revealed, and it's a very blurry picture, but 2 victory points if your unit strength on the opposing half of the table is more than your opponent's, pretty much. So it's kind of the invade scenario that he's got there. So he charges these guys into the spitters, the braves. These are the ones I just really want to kill. I mean, look, they're up to 12 damage. They're at death's door. I'll get quite a few points if they die. And Grocky goes into the war trombone there. And then there's a bit of a stare down between one of his wizards and this flagget. These ogres here countercharge into the bruiser. And there's a nice wide shot. So there's the artillery dice I was telling you about. Kind of a swirly orange look with black pips on it. And it usually serves me well, but not in this game. Don't think it's actually hit at all yet. Or if it has, it's only once. And my flagget dies as a result of the wizard. The shooters, what do they do this time? Well, they put some damage, 1 damage onto this flagget. They were just in range, but they double won him, so didn't matter anyway. Over here, he wavers the Spitter Horde, which is actually really annoying because if they weren't wavered, it was touch and go whether they would become wavered. If they were just fine and they countercharged, it's feasible I could have put 1 damage onto these guys, and maybe that would have finished them off. So that's really unfortunate there. And Grocky kills the war trombone, as you'd expect. And these guys become wavered as well, so they're not going to be able to countercharge. 4 damage done to Mr. Bruiser, so he's going to be all right. Turn 5. So my bruisers combine to kill that unit here. Finish them off. And these trolls turn to face Grokkagamok. So unless he attacks them, wherever he goes, I'm going to be able to attack him in the next turn, and he's the one unit that's most valuable for me at the moment, because he's not going to get the victory points for having more unit strength in the center, because I've just got lots of stuff around there, and he doesn't. He's in a position to get the most unit strength in my half, because this unit here is probably going to kill my Spitter Horde in the last turn. And for my objectives, I just need to kill. If I kill him, it's going to be the game won pretty much. Ogre turn 5. And he goes into them again. And Grokkagamok decides he's going to go into the Troll Horde, try and kill them. If he does kill them, I've got 2 bruisers to charge him with. And if he doesn't kill them, I can countercharge with these trolls, which is arguably better because they won't be hindered by the woods because it'll be a countercharge. But unfortunately, these 2 bruisers won't be able to join in because they can't see over the height of the trolls there. There is a strategy card where you can see over something of the same height when declaring a charge, but I didn't have that, unfortunately. In hindsight, what could have been helpful would be only charging one of the bruisers into that unit that was there, although it was risky because I might not have killed them, and positioned the other one ready to attack Grocky next time. But we'll see. Maybe he wouldn't have charged into this troll unit if there was another bruiser looking in this kind of direction, though. Who knows? Over here, you can see that he's got his wizard and his shooters there, and they waver one of my bruisers with their shooting attacks. Get him up to 5 damage, and then waver. And his chariot character finishes off my horde of rebel. He puts 4 damage with Grocky, who rolled quite badly, actually, with his attacks. So the trolls are still alive with a chance to kill him. And they managed to kill off the... What were they fighting? Oh, yeah, it was the Spitter Horde, wasn't it? So the Spitter Horde's dead, and they're still alive. My turn 6, so I need to do killing now. But look at this. So ignore that chariot, because that comes in his turn 6. In my turn 6, though, the trolls charge into Grokkagamok, put 8 damage on him, but they can only waver him. So if I get a turn 7, I would say old Grocky is pretty close to death. And if I can kill him, then I will win the game. That's pretty much guaranteed, I think, at this point. I believe... Especially if the trolls don't die, and because he's wavered, I expect them to survive that chariot in the flank while inspired. So I would prevent him from getting his primary objective here in the middle. And he also doesn't have anything on the other part of his primary objective, because his shooters have been firing every turn and not moving onto that objective. So if these guys survive and then kill Grocky in turn 7, which is, in my opinion, very likely, looking at how damaged he is, then that would be a win. So he can't do anything. So Ogre turn 6, the Chariot goes in, and his Wizard charges into this Bruiser and actually wavers him despite only doing a small amount of damage. And then gets these Trolls up to 6 damage, not enough to do anything to them though. And I can now tell you that with the roll for turn 7, there is no turn 7, which means that I'm unable to kill any of the target units. So the 50-50 dice roll there, if it had gone the other way, I think I had a very good chance of killing Grokkagamok, which would have meant that I won probably 5-2 on victory points, because he would have been worth 5 on his own to kill in close combat. But because we didn't get turn 7, then I lost 2-0 on victory points. So wow, indeed, that's the fine line that it comes down to. And considering that my artillery, I think that all the Rotlobbers combined only hit once over the entire game and didn't do that much damage. So considering that bad fortune, the fact that on a 50-50 dice roll I could have turned that loss into a massive victory, I think I can't be too disappointed with that, really. It's just the gods decreed that there would not be a turn 7 and the ogres claim victory. And as far as kill points go, I only killed 740 points. My opponent killed 1,180, so he gets 3 bonus points, I get 2. So he gets 15 points for the win, I get 2 points for the loss, which is really, really bad. So 2 big wins, 1 big loss, which could have been a juicy win. If I'd killed him, that would have given me 5 victory points, and it would have bumped my kill points up by 1 as well, I would say. So let's see, plus 10 points for the win. Yeah, that would have given me 18 points for the win, I think, if we'd had a turn 7 and I hadn't double wand Grokkagamok on the nerve test. So those are the fine margins. Overall, though, you could argue that I made a mistake with charging the 2 troll units into his unit early on, which got them both killed ultimately. But I did manage to almost turn it round and snatch it, but it wasn't to be. Sacrificing those 2 troll units, it was a calculated risk, but when you take a big risk like that, when you know the downside is huge and the odds are only marginally in your favour, then maybe it's best not to do it. Risk versus reward. The reward was big, the risk was massive, but the downside on failure was too big, I think. So I would say that moment, it was just as big at defining the loss as the lack of a turn 7. Those 2 things combined definitely did it. So it's not all just down to bad luck. There are choices that you make that affect these things as well. And obviously I could have done things differently. So going into round 4, this is going to be take and hold. And the way that works is there are 3 objective points. 1 over here, 1 in the middle, and 1 over there. And these generate points throughout the game. So when it says take and hold, it does actually mean it. You want to take them early on and hold them. So if you're controlling those points from turn 3 onwards, at the end of your turn, then you'll generate a victory point for each one that you're controlling, which is bad news for my army, I think, because I want to sit back and shoot people. So if I'm sitting back and letting them walk up into the middle of the board and sit on objectives, racking up points, then that's bad. If they had to hold them at the end of the game to get points, then that would be ideal, because I can just shoot them to bits and then right at the end pounce in there with my combat troops and fight. But the fact that you can rack up points throughout the game means that if I just sit back and shoot people, then chances are they'll be too far ahead by the time I start advancing to actually be caught. So And that's made even worse by the fact I'm facing an orc army with a huge amount of meat. And you'll see exactly what I mean by this in a minute when I get to go through that force, but it is just a wall of green flesh. So those are the objectives. On this side, I've got my sniffs, a troll unit that is actually there, but they wouldn't stay on this hill. So the other one's just sitting there for now. There's a bruiser in there, the flagget with the hand grenade. One of the rotlobbers is on the hill. The spitters, the war trombones are just hiding behind there for now. I know the enemy's going to be moving forwards. Then a rotlobber there. I'm trying to put all my rotlobbers pointing towards the objectives because that's where they're going to want to shoot most of the time. And then my trolls around this area here. On this side, the rabble. I don't think he's got much over on this side, but I'll show you in a sec. And one of the rotlobbers there. Let's see. Okay, so this is starting on his... I think this is on his right flank, or my right flank, should I say, to his left. He's got a unit of orcs there, a horde there. These are just your regular, typical orcs, I think. He's got a war drum behind. He's got a flagger, and he's got the new, I think this one might be a, what's it called? The orc healer type dude, the priest. I've forgotten exactly what he's called now. But he's mounted on a piggy. Then he's got... These guys are the, I think they're called Great Axe. They're the ones with more crushing strength. And I think they are Morax there, so they have tons of attacks. He's got a giant. He's got a unit, I think they're just your bog standard orcs there. And over on this flank, he's got two more, he's got two crushers, I think they're called, which are the new mounted character, which are actually a nightmare for an army like mine, because I've got a lot of annoying little shooting attacks that can be charged and taken out in one go by a mediocre combat individual like these. So anytime you come up against orcs or dwarves that have those kind of characters that aren't that expensive and can ride amongst your lines taking out trombones and stuff, that's a bit of a nightmare. He's got some gore riders there, and this Crudger on Slasher is not actually there. It's actually right up to the rock there where that base is to represent it, but his neck was too long, so he was poking the rock. So he's just put that base there instead. And I had a couple of deployments left at the end, so I was able to get one of my rotlobbers looking right at it. Turn 1. But in fact, I'll tell you how much meat he's got. All these guys, most of them have defense 5, most of these units, and they all have pretty decent nerve as well. So that is not going to be a good time. I'm going to have to rely on rotlobbers hitting here, I think, because there's so much nerve. He's going to step forward onto these objectives, and by the time I slowly chew through all that nerve with my shooting, he'll have already racked up too many points. So I'm going to have to go actually out there and fight him. So I'm going to have to take some risks here. I do advance a little bit because I want to get onto these objectives. I think I can keep this one with this unit here for the entire game because he doesn't have much over here at all. And a bit of an advance, but not much on this side. I want to pelt him with gunfire first. So the rotlobber. The first rotlobber shot of the game actually hits and puts damage onto the slasher. And I always struggle to remember what these colours mean on the wounds when people have these, but I think that represents 5, probably, the yellow. I think white is 1. So my sniffs managed to waver this unit with a double 6. I think I'd only put 2 damage on them, but there you go, so that's nice. Slows them down a bit. And his turn 1. So he moves up, he's got people into position to charge. So I'm going to hope to do lots of damage in the next turn to prevent some of those charges. I will have an option to charge that slasher with my sniffs if I want, but we'll see how confident I am with my shooting. And then he advances everything else up, as you'd expect. I think this isn't a hill, this is actually woods here. So, but the trees on it kept falling over, so we just took them away. Everything moved up, staring me down, and it's quite terrifying seeing all those orcs there. Turn 2. So I'm not advancing to within charge range of anything, or so I think. And I'm just positioning within 3 inches of that, so at the end of my next turn I can hopefully control it and get a victory point there. And I'm just going to be plinking off shots whenever I can. Over on this side, I decided not to charge anything with that. And I actually make a mistake here, because I, for some reason, was thinking that the orc cavalry were speed 7 and they were actually speed 8. So I put these guys too close so they can get charged in the flank now. So that was a mistake on my part there, just forgetting the rules to the opponent's forces or not checking. And everything else, the trolls are positioned on the hill. So if this guy wants to charge anybody, he's going to be charged by something. And same goes for the flyer. And with my shooting, I put more damage on things. The slasher's taken some more damage. The giant takes a bit. But look at this. So let's go back a little bit here. This troll unit here, I was thinking of charging at this unit here. And I could have prevented them becoming hindered by moving one of my characters onto the edge of this obstacle. I had a character over here I was going to do that with, which would have meant they could go round him and not become hindered by going through it. But in the end, I decided not to do that. I just thought, you know what, I'll go backwards. But because I wasn't focused on anything else other than this line here, and I was thinking about charging them in, I neglected to check the range of this dragon, or this slasher here. So that's actually got a flank charge on them now that I foolishly left open. So that often happens when you're focused on doing one thing and then quickly change your mind and move back. You forget to check all the lanes, because I was checking charge arcs and such while I was under the assumption that I was going to be charging in there. And then I forgot to then check things again afterwards. So he's got a flank charge now. And you can see that he takes it, and the giant has energy burst used on him. That's the second time someone's used that on a giant against me today. And that means he's now got a double charge onto this troll unit here, which is going to be bad news. And of course, that flank charge I told you about, that I just forgot the charge capacity of these Gore Riders foolishly. I think it might be Brock Riders that are speed 7. And then he charges one of his crushers, the little guys, onto my Spitter Horde there, which is going to have possibly a double effect. It's going to obviously disrupt them from shooting and maybe block any charges, any multi-charges perhaps in this direction if he fails to kill the trolls maybe. He's put another one in the middle just to be annoying, I imagine, maybe a bit of bait. And I have to decide whether it's worth taking the bait or not to stop him going after my war machines. Over on this side, this is towards the middle, he's positioned himself so he's within 3 inches of the objectives around here. So he's going to pick up 2 victory points at the end of turn 3. And of course, the sniffs are dead, allowing themselves to be flank charged like that. And the trolls are dead, allowing themselves to be flank charged like that. There's 2 units down, and you can see that's how it looks at the end when we've adequately separated the units, because of his long neck was making it difficult to get him in the right place. Turn 3. So there are victory points up for grabs now. So the Bruiser charges into this guy out in the open, puts a bit of damage on him, but not enough. So I decided to take the bait just to possibly stop him going after my war machines. But I haven't really succeeded. I was hoping to kill him there or waver him maybe. And I do charge my trolls into, I believe they went into the crusher there and killed that, and then possibly overrun into the slasher. If they didn't do that, they just went straight into the slasher, and these guys countered into the crusher. I think I might have double charged the crusher actually, countercharge and the trolls in the flank, who then overran into the slasher and finished it off. So that's okay, and I can prevent myself being flank charged by the giant now. Over on this side, I do a triple charge into the orc unit that was here with these guys, because it'll still keep them within 3 inches of the objective, the Bruiser and the troll horde there. So I needed to succeed in that attack though, because otherwise I would have been flank charged by this horde. And remember, they're in woods, not a hill here, so if they want to charge off there, they will be hindered. So I would expect the trolls to survive a hindered charge from them for one go while inspired. So you can see that's how it's looking. We've both lost a couple of big units now. So he's got this advantage on positioning around the objectives, but I am coming in from this side on the unit he's holding this one with. So at the end of my turn, I pick up a victory point there. His turn 3, so he's going to pick up 2 unless he abandons the objectives, but here's all his charges. The Gore Riders can't charge into the flank of the Spitters because there's not enough room there. So they go into the big rock thrower instead. He goes for a triple charge on the trolls, the Great Axe into the flank, giant in the front, and a crusher in the rear, and this unit of more axe goes into the Bruiser. And over here, of course, he charges that horde into the trolls there, as expected. He manages to get this unit onto that objective there, so he's going to claim a point for that. And for that one as well. This guy, I think he might cast a spell on them. And double ones, but obviously it doesn't really matter. But for the purposes of winning a double one prize, it might matter. And those guys roll quite badly. Even though they were hindered, you would expect them to do more than 2 damage. But quite a bad roll for them. Obviously, the rock thrower dies. The bruiser becomes wavered as a result of this little combat here, which is annoying. The giant and this unit in the flank, because they were going over an obstacle, so they were hindered. He could only waver this troll unit, and he used panicking the ranks to try and finish them off. Or actually, I suspected he had that card because he was thinking about using it on one of his rolls. So I thought, you know what, I'll just get him to use it now. So I'll use my sudden faith on them just to get that card out of the way. And I subtract 1 from a nerve test made by you or your opponent. So I took 1 off, which would have stopped them being wavered, and then he used his card to put it back on, just to get rid of the cards. Because I knew he had it. So they are wavered, but they only took 4 damage. So, and they're the one unit that can't do anything while wavered as well, which is annoying. Because you could say I got lucky, or maybe it was just skillful positioning in the earlier games when I was able to get the 2 units that don't mind being wavered to be the ones that got wavered. But in this game, not the case. So he's going to get a point for that, and a point for that. So he's up 2-1 now. Turn 4. So he can't really do anything. Trolls can't do anything. Those guys, I think they actually shoot at something, maybe the giant, because they weren't charged last turn. And I do manage to kill off his gore riders up there with all my shooting from down here. You can see there's a war trombone poking its nose in there. Over here, double charge into his horde with Harambe and the trolls. And I used this card because he was behind them, this bruiser. So I used this spotter card so he could charge along with a unit of the same height he was able to see over them. So I was able to get the double charge in because of that. I didn't do a triple charge because I wanted to stay sitting on this objective and get points. So we'll see if I pay for that. And I move my Holy Hand Grenade around here and start chipping away damage on them. The Hand Grenade was hitting quite reliably, but I don't think the Rot Lobbers were hitting much at this point. So I got a point there, so it's 2-2 at this stage. Here's turn 4. So I think that unit up there became wavered from something. I think I may have shot at them with this unit here, because he doesn't block line of sight, of course. So I was able to shoot them with cover. And I think I got a lucky waver on them, so that's why they're not joining in with this attack. But I think the giant wavers them again with a good roll, unfortunately. Or maybe just haven't taken off the wave token from last time. We'll see how that goes in a sec. Here, the horde goes back into the troll horde, and they're not hindered anymore. Okay, so he gets them up to 4 now and doesn't waver them again. So that's right. And I think they were wavered, yeah, so they weren't able to go in. This troll bruiser becomes wavered again. He's up to 9 damage now. So he's holding up those Morax there at least. And oh, was I wrong again? Because they're up to 6 damage now. Yeah, but I don't think they became wavered though. So these guys took damage from him, most likely. And that troll unit died. So they're dead. This unit has taken damage. I'm not sure. The red maybe represents 10 damage, so that might be how much they're on. So with shooting, I could take them out. So he gets a point for that one, and a point for that one. So it's now 4-2 to the Orcs on victory points. Turn 5, so I need to start getting points here. So Harambe, the Bruiser, I've got him up here because I don't want him to be charged by them, because I need him to score points on this objective. So in turn 6, I'm going to charge him down there and kill whatever's on that objective, because he's height 2, so he can see through all that. And by all that, I mean the enemy unit. And remember, this is woods, not a hill. over here, the trolls that weren't wavered charge back into the giant, put some damage on him. And these guys actually kill the crusher that was there, I think. And these guys have moved back onto the objective because there's that big horde of orcs there staring at them, so they've moved out of charge range. But they are going to claim a point there, so it takes it up to 4-3. Enemy turn. So this guy gets wavered from shooting this time, so the third time this bruiser has been wavered in the game so far. And that's really bad news because when I get another angle, I'll show you my plan that I had to win this game. And I may only have a chance to maybe get a draw now when I show you this. So over here, the trolls do die. They get flank charged again by them who didn't get wavered for a second time. Giant in the front. They're dead. Over here, they turn to face that way. And the token, I think, is kind of around here somewhere. So it's stopping him from claiming it. Unless he wants to charge into them, maybe. He doesn't want to get flank charged by Harambe the Bruiser, though. Who would? And over here, the Moraks have gone into the Spitter Horde and wavered them instead. So lots of wavering going on over here. And I haven't really mentioned the Rocklobbers at all. That's because they've not been hitting anything. So this is the second game in a row where the Rocklobbers have been absolutely abysmal. I think they used up all their amazing dice rolls. And there's my beautiful artillery dice again. I think all the amazing dice rolls that came flowing out of that dice in Game 2 and Game 1 to a slightly lesser extent have been totally used up, and the gods of dice are just putting everything back into balance by giving me no hits, really, in the last 2 games. You can see that it's looking dicey. I've lost quite a lot of units, and he's got a lot left, but I'm still in with a chance of a win or possibly a draw here because it's not that far apart on points, and I've got units around that can claim objectives. So what I was talking about with my bruiser over here becoming wavered, this unit is sitting right on top of an objective over there. I assume you can see my mouse cursor. So what I would like to do, because he's nimble and on a hill, and I don't think there's anything blocking his sight anyway, he could have charged that unit there. Which means if he killed them, he would then be sitting on an objective at the end of my turn. Not only giving me an extra objective, but depriving him of one at the end of his turn, because he wouldn't really have anyone that could then get to within range of it, by my reckoning. Because it's very congested over here. I'm not sure whether all these units would be able to turn around and get far enough that way. And they've got other things to worry about as well. Or at least they did before this guy got wavered for the 18th time. And then Harambe the Bruiser up there wants this one. And I'm confident I can kill this unit with shooting. You can see I've got my wizard and my flagget and everything else surrounding them, just pelting them. And my Rocklobbers are taking aim at them as well. This one can actually see them as well through there. So his horde is sitting on one. And that unit there that I want to have been attacking by now, but I've only been able to grenade them a couple of times. They're sitting on one, so he gets 2 more. So I believe he's 6-3 up now, so something like that. That sounds right. So, right, this is my turn again, I think. I'm not sure there's a picture of a turn dice, though. Don't think there is. I think I just forgot to do it. So this is probably my turn 6 here. So they can't do anything, he can't do anything. But I'm going to be tromboning away at the giant. And I think I actually target one of the trombones at that unit as well, because I wanted to try and finish them off. But I double wand them, wouldn't you know it? And they were on quite a bit of damage as well there. So that's unfortunate. Another double one. Then the horde in the middle that was sitting on this, well, I did manage to get rid of them with shooting, but I did have to use a Lady Luck reroll one of your dice. Now, the reason I didn't use it on this one was either because I did that one first, or this maybe wasn't that close to getting rid of them, so maybe I just didn't want to risk it. So that unit is, that big horde there is dead. That's a ton of points. And now Harambe the Bruiser is in position to hold that objective now, because he doesn't have anything to get it. So I'm going to pick up 2 points here, which is going to put me up to 5, I believe. Yeah, I got 1 in turn 3, 1 in turn 4, 1 in turn 5, and 2 in turn 6. So I'm on 5, He's currently on 6, and he's holding 1 objective over here. So, onward. I'm going to need turn 7, really. Yeah, because they've got 1, he's got 1. Enemy turn 6. So he manages to kill off the spitter horde that have been here, being annoying all game with the giant. And those guys are holding an objective. We were running really low on time at this point, so we weren't doing all the attacks we could have done because our clocks were getting very close to the end. But we do get a turn 7. So in turn 7, those guys are going to be claiming a point. Harambe is going to be claiming a point. And let's see, he's on 7, and I was on 5 at the end of turn 6, and I've just claimed 2, so I've gone up to 7 as well. And my Troll Bruiser, who wasn't wavered for the first time in about a million years, was actually able to charge this already damaged unit. And had I killed them, I would have then claimed this point, which would have at least got me a draw, if not a win, depending if anyone was able to then attack and kill the Bruiser and maybe hold that point at the end of his turn. But I think most guys were facing the other way regardless, and they wouldn't have been able to get within an inch of him. And I could have always done something. If I'd killed them, I could have pivoted him a bit so that he was pointier in this direction, which meant that there's even less chance of them getting within 3 inches of the token. So if I'd killed them, that would have given me an extra point and taken away his opportunity to get another point. So I think I could have actually won the game, or possibly a draw, if I'd killed them and claimed that point. Definitely could have won if I'd killed them earlier when I wanted to, but he kept getting wavered. So that was bad. And here's my total points for the end. 7. And his turn 7. So he actually manages to kill the Bruiser on the counter charge. So just to add insult to injury. And that's the end of that. So I did manage to kill the giant in amongst all that as well with my trombones. I think I had about 8 seconds left on the clock, but I had just enough time to kill various things. So he picked up a point there, which is going to put him on 8 and me on 7, so he's actually going to win. But I'm going to pick up 5 maximum bonus victory points, which is nice for getting lots of victory points accumulated over the course of the game. And I did plenty of killing. I think I actually did more killing than him. So let's see, there's his 8 victory points as confirmation that he was victorious. And at this point, I'll tell you, I actually made a miscalculation, which luckily hasn't affected anything. But my opponent, after the game, when he found out the final standings, when it was revealed that he'd finished 4th, I think, in the overall leaderboard, and he'd only lost out on kill points. And with the way I calculated it, it seemed as though if he'd gone after and killed 1 war trombone, it would have pushed him up to the next victory point threshold and given him another point for kill point bonus, which would have put him into 3rd place and a trophy. However, I was triple checking all my calculations after the tournament before I did the video, just to stop people complaining if they do. And I found out that I actually counted what had survived and knocked that off 2,000 instead of 1,900 just out of habit. So it wouldn't have knocked him down a victory point threshold though, that 100 points gone, but it can make him feel slightly less bad about not attacking a war trombone and killing it, because he would have needed to kill 3 or 4 things in order to go up a level. So he doesn't have to feel quite so bad anymore due to my miscalculation. So I ended up finishing, I think it was 8th in the table out of 16. So after those 2 massive opening wins, I think obviously the rock lobbers were the big factors in swaying the early and the later games. When they roll amazingly, I'm very likely to win. When they roll abysmally, then I'm likely to lose. But as you saw though, I very nearly in game 3 got a win out of it. And in this game here, with the rock lobbers underperforming as well, I very nearly got at least a draw out of it, which would have been nice. So when the rock lobbers just roll average, then that's all right. But they never seem to roll average. They seem to be the best things ever and just are laser guided and take everything out with extreme precision. Or they can't hit the broadside of a barn with a banjo. So you generally get one or the other. You don't tend to get in between with my dice rolling. So we shall see. I'm testing out lists that don't have rock lobbers in, because I wouldn't say I've grown reliant on them. I just find them really fun because people are terrified of them. And there's all that drama when you just get out the big extra heavy dice and start rolling it and looking for that 5 or a 6. It just adds tension to the game, I think, which is exciting. Because they're, on average, each one is unlikely to hit. But when you've got enough of them, they will hit a few times over the course of the game. Except for the last 2 games in this tournament, where I think they hit once in each game, maybe, after getting at least 6 hits in game 2. And quite a few in game 1 as well, some of which they were relying on 6s in game 1. So, in that last game, I did get a lot of victory points, though. For a loss, I got 9, because I got 4 for kill points, because I killed so much stuff. I mean, everything he's got left, you can see in this little blob here. I killed a ton. He's only got 3 regiments left and a couple of characters. But, yeah, I killed a lot of stuff, including that giant right at the end. And that big giant horde was expensive. So, overall, I think it was quite a satisfactory experience. Obviously, when you come so close to achieving something really good in a tournament and then, in the end up exactly halfway down, then there's that minor level of disappointment. It's not as bad as the time. There was a tournament where I was in the top table in the final game and ended up finishing, I think that might have been 8th as well, because lots of people were perched just behind. And if I'd played really conservatively in that last game in that other tournament, then I could have guaranteed 3rd or 4th position. But because I went for it, I ended up dropping down half the table. So it's not as bad as that, obviously, because I wasn't on the top table at the end. So there are 2 losses and 2 wins. Can't really argue with that too much. I think all the players that I came up against were good. I didn't play against any. It was a few people there it was their first tournament, but I didn't play against any of them. Everyone I played against was widely experienced. So it was good. I'm going to test out some different lists, though. I've got a practice game or 2 coming up in the next few weeks before the next tournament, which is in Sheffield. And it's the follow-up to the previous tournament I went to, run by Northern Kings. So that one's going to be 2,000 points. So I'm going to try out some different Goblin lists and maybe take something different to that tournament. Because I've decided now I am sticking with Goblins until Clash of Kings. And then after that, I'm going to try something else. Possibly, if I've got my Undead Halflings ready by then, I could go Rordia. If not, I can try out my Stormcast Eternal Ogres again, because I've got a few more options for that army now. Because I was a little bit limited when I ran them in the past and I didn't do very well with them. So we'll see about that in the future. And the Double One award, I didn't win that. I only got, I think it was 4 double ones over the course of the day, 3 of them in the first game. And I don't know why this seems to happen to me, but I get all my double ones in games that I actually win. You may remember on one of my previous tournament reports, I got just a ton of really awful nerve rolls, but it was in a game that I won. I think it was against Abyssals, if I remember correctly. I just got double one over and over and over, but I still won somehow. But maybe it's just because when you're winning, you're generally rolling a ton of nerve tests because you're doing so much damage to people. So you're more likely to get double ones in those games than the games where you're not even damaging anybody because you've been wiped off the table. So that could have something to do with it. The more nerve tests you make, the more double ones are going to come up. So it depends on what kind of army you take as well. Right then, so if anyone has any comments or questions before we wrap this one up. Been going almost exactly 2 hours here. So I'm just going to go backwards through all the images, reminisce about all these wonderful moments in gaming history. Let's see. Ross says, I got a double one on the last roll of turn 7, which prevented me a draw and from being in 3rd position. Wow, wow. Yep, I can feel your pain. Often dice-based games, though, they do come down to things like that when you're in a really close game. When one thing goes against you and it costs you the game. On the one hand, it's luck and you put yourself in a position where most of the time you'll get the perfect outcome. But on the other hand, if you're relying on that one moment to win you the game, maybe you should have been more dominant early on. There you go. So if you ever hear me blaming bad luck for a loss, then you can use that line on me. And I will accept it because there is truth to it. The more chances you give yourself to fail, then the more chance there is that you're going to fail, obviously. The more critical rolls there are. If you're just wiping the floor with someone and outplaying them at every turn, then even rolling double ones isn't going to stop you. John says, thanks for posting this. Great report. Yep, it was a very fun tournament. And also, it was the first tournament where I've taken severed goblin heads as trophies and given them to anyone that has defeated my army. So I had to give out 2 at this tournament, so I'm actually going to have to make some more. I was hoping to just win every game for the next however many years and never have to make any more, just keep taking 4 to each tournament. But I'm going to have to actually get some more painted now, because I think that's a nice little thing. I know some people give them to their opponent even when they don't defeat them, but I think if I've just beaten someone into the turf and stomped on them, then I don't think they really want to commemorate that by having a little trophy from my army. So I think it's best just if they beat me, because they'll actually want to remember it then. Here we go, scrolling through. And by the way, the overall winner of the tournament was this ogre army that I had that incredibly close game with. And I did say to him after our game, hopefully you can go and win the tournament now, because then at least I can say the person that defeated me won the tournament. So there you go. Brendan says, as long as you enjoy the game, that's all that matters. Yep, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And people tend to find it more enjoyable when everyone is trying to win, but not at the expense of fun. If you've got someone that just doesn't even care about winning and is just messing around, then it's not really that fun, because it's not really like a mutual challenge. You want someone that's trying to win, but in a kind of light-hearted manner. Those are the best opponents, I find. And that's how I try to be. I'm trying to win, think tactically all the time about making the right moves, but it's not the end of the world if something goes wrong, and I'm not going to be in a bad mood at the end of a game, regardless of the outcome. If anyone can capture a picture of me with a frown from a tournament, then feel free. I'm not that much of a big smiler, though, so it's quite possible you will. Okay, we're getting closer to the start now, getting through this orc. These goblins, should I say. Some very nicely painted armies at this tournament as well. I don't think I've got much chance of winning a Best Army Appearance award. Maybe if I take my Undead Rordians to a tournament and there isn't that much painting competition there, because they are quite eye-catching, even though they're not that complicated to paint. They're not that precise and detailed, the paintwork, but they do catch the eye, I think, and I think they're effective looking. So they could be in with a chance, depending who else is at the tournament. So maybe in the future, you never know. But overall, my painting level is several stages below some of the tournament regulars. So I wouldn't bet anything on ever winning a Best Army award. Here we go. Any other comments or questions? Because we're almost back to the beginning now, and then we're going to wrap this one up. As far as what's coming up on this channel, well, I'm going to be playing a couple of games of Age of Sigmar soon, so there's going to be a battle report for at least one of those. I'm going to that Kings of War tournament I mentioned in a few weeks, or a couple of weeks. I'll have to check the calendar. I can't remember exactly when it is. And then over the next couple of months, there are 2 Dead Zone tournaments as well. So I'll be hoping, after last time scooping first place at a Dead Zone tournament, I'll be hoping I can follow that up by getting more decorations for my trophy cabinet. Dave Doge says it's all about how you hold the brush. Well, if only that were true. I think it's about knowing the right techniques, knowing how and when to apply them effectively, and years of painting practice. There are some people who have been painting a short time whose painting doesn't look as good as mine, but I can tell that in a couple of years they're going to be way better than I am, because they're painting in a style that as it improves, they're going to become amazing. Whereas my painting is only better than theirs because I've been doing it for a long time and it's neater, but the actual style isn't that amazing. It's like the difference between watching let's say an 8-year-old who's really amazing kicking a ball around, but he's still an 8-year-old. So if you put him in there against a grown-up, then even though the grown-up technically might not be very good, he's still going to beat him. That's the way I would look at it. My painting might look better than some, but eventually you can tell who's going to be really amazing at painting one day because they're using the right techniques. They just haven't had the practice to make it look amazing yet. So I can usually identify those kind of people and then watch as they progress over the years and say, oh, look, I was right. They're way better than me now. So I don't think I'm ever going to become a top-level painter because I don't want to say I'm not trying to, but I don't want to spend that much time painting. So I'll try to find faster ways to paint armies because painting isn't so much my passion. Gaming, number one, and I actually like assembling and converting miniatures more than painting, I think. I like looking at the finished painted model, but the actual process is quite tiresome. Okay, time to wrap this one up. Everyone, don't forget to check out the links in the description, social media, and all the various fundraising shenanigans there is down there. Link to Cheeks as well, if anyone hasn't ever heard of that. If you've never heard me mention that, you've probably been living under a rock. And any comments on what you'd like to see in the future on this channel, any tips or asking for advice on how to play goblins or how not to play goblins, perhaps, in some instances. Any kind of lists you'd like to see me run for goblins. I've got an awful lot of different troop options. So let me know if there's something you want to see. Or if you want to see totally different armies, let me know that as well. And I'll certainly consider that in future battle reports. And with that, I think it's time to say, well, it's not really time to say good night, is it? Because it's only just after 3 in the afternoon. So, good afternoon out there, whatever you are.